some emoji. If you're not bored, if you're really excited for what we have ahead of you, for you, just let me see a signal, and yeah, we'll proceed. Akinpelu, yeah, thank you very much for that. Cheers. All right, so just very shortly, I'll be going into my presentation. Again, apologies, the internet itself just wanted to show itself, but we wouldn't allow it. So we'll be going into my session, and very briefly, I'll just be talking about the UK market, the uniqueness of the UK market, and why you actually need hands-on experience. So I'll be sharing my screen again. And yeah, let me know once you are able to see my screen. Just a few moments, and I'll be sharing my screen. Just a few seconds. While I'm on that, I would like to have an idea as to the categories of people we have on the call. And that's going to be the focus of our conversation. I expect that it is very interactive. And yeah, I expect that it is extremely, extremely interactive. And what we want to explore today majorly is around how unique the UK market itself is. What are those skills you need to focus on, especially if you're trying to get into the UK market? What makes the UK market quite different from every other market out there in the world? And well, some of these things that apply to the UK market as well applies to, the global tech market beyond just our local space in itself. So I'm sharing my slide right now. You can let me know if you can see my slide. I'll just like a reaction or something. If you can see my slide, sharing my slide now. I like a reaction, please. I just want to be sure. Okay, good. Emmanuel, awesome. Yeah, so so again, I'll be talking about the uniqueness of the UK market and how you can build hands-on experience. Now, I want to share just this bit. Has anyone experienced this kind of mail lately? I like to see our reactions. I have a number of times. This unfortunately email, I think it's more like a template already. They just get it ready. Uthman, that's nice. I'd like to hear someone's experience. If you like to speak, I'd just like to hear very briefly just what it felt like. How did it feel receiving this kind of mail? I know a number of persons have received it, and you probably might not be on this call if you've not received this kind of mail, especially from UK recruiters. Devastating, right? I know. Daniel, do you mind sharing your experience, or maybe Uthman, just give me an emoji if you want to share your experience, just very briefly. Okay. Leon would like to share. Okay, so Leon, I'll be giving you the chance to unmute now. Just a few seconds. And okay, so just just very briefly, Leon, I just gave you a chance to speak. Just very briefly, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir. My name is Leon. I'm from Nigeria. Well, I've gotten this exact email like multiple times, like to the part I even like, what's going on, man? I almost wanted to give up on applying for jobs and all that. Because the more I keep applying, the more this email keep popping up. And sometimes in a week, I can get this exact email like 5 times from different companies. And, as that keep coming, and keep getting encouraged by some other persons, like people, friends, and all that. Each time I keep telling them that, man, I don't know what's going on. No, companies keep declining my emails and my proposal, and I don't know. From them, they keep on encouraging, man. Don't just keep on doing it, man. Just keep on applying.
Yeah.
Don't worry. One day you actually get someone, a company that will accept you. Stuff like that. So that's it.
It's nice to know, and don't worry, it's gonna come very soon. And that's one of the reasons we had to set up a session like this, so that you can actually see maybe certain errors or certain mistakes you're maybe making, and we can ensure that such itself is fixed. I'd like to probably have I want to have like a mix of okay, I think I'm looking at someone else I could have probably speak, and I think I saw Ime. Yeah, Ime Etienne, do you want to speak? I hope I pronounced your name right, so you can correct me anyway. I've given you the chance to, yeah.
Yeah, you made a good attempt.
Can you hear?
Okay, so I'm Imetin from.
Oh, Ime.
Yeah, I received
Yeah.
those mails. Okay, my name is Imetin Fon from Nigeria. I'm based in Port Harcourt, Nigeria.
Oh, nice.
I receive those mails frequently as well. I received one an hour ago, and each time I see them, I just laugh it off. I just say, okay, and then these guys, they missed something great. So I look up for the next opportunity.
Yeah, nice. I don't worry. As just as I mentioned to Leon as well. It's gonna make sense eventually. Don't worry. Basically, it's not just one person that is experiencing this, and I believe as well, just as it is for those that joined us from Nigeria, the same thing is for those that are here in the UK, especially this UK market. It can be quite daunting. It's very frustrating. But the funniest thing and the irony itself is the fact that UK employers are always looking for new tech talents, right? They are so empathetic on talent in itself, not the certificates, not the fact that you have very beautiful CVs and all of those things. Those things are nice, those things are beautiful, but they are very, very keen on talent. And how do we even measure talent? I think it's one of those things that we need to look at. But before that, this is basically a report from TechNation, and some of us might probably know TechNation. TechNation partners with the UK government, especially the UK VI, on issuing out global talent visas. So basically, they issue out talent visas for talents that are well recognized in the world, right? So one of the reports they released last year is the fact that the UK advertises tech jobs way more than European countries, way more than the EU, countries in the EU, 259% higher, right? So that means as much as the UK itself is like an island and small and every other thing, there are loads of opportunities. There are loads of opportunities. So the most likely reason organizations are probably not taking you or accepting you is most likely because they probably don't see you in that space of you being a talent. And the truth of the matter is nobody can blow your horn more than yourself, right? Nobody can tell your story more than yourself. So if they don't see you in that particular light, as much as you might go through interviews and all of those things, the chance of them being able to employ you, if they don't see you as a talent itself, is very, very minimal, right? Another statistics I would like to just quickly throw in is one by Lightcast. And they said by 2030, by the year 2030, there will be 1.41 million jobs or opportunities in tech by the year 2030. So the truth of the matter is there are jobs, but basically, how do we ensure that we're able to align ourselves as talents, right? Because you need to see yourself first from the perspective of the talents. How do you align yourself into this particular space? And that is basically the uniqueness. So now, what does this mean? There's room for you. You just have to get this right. So first thing I would like to mention itself is for you as a talent, you actually need to leverage, just a few seconds, you need to leverage on your existing gold mine, which is your transferable skills. Now, the fact that, excuse me, please, I just want to. Yeah, apologies, please. Yeah, so I have a baby and she was getting quite fussy. So I had to just quickly change environment. So apologies about that. So yeah, as I was speaking, now you need to actually leverage on your existing gold mine, which is basically your transferable skills. Beyond just the fact that you're a very brilliant software engineer, beyond the fact that you are very incredible at, what you do on a daily basis, right? You need to actually be able to leverage on existing skills. The fact that you probably you used to be in finance, you're trying to migrate into tech, it doesn't mean every single background or knowledge that you have in finance is not useful within the tech landscape, right? So you need to be able to leverage on, existing skills like leadership. Are you very good at being able to organize teams? Are you very good at being able to manage people effectively? Do you find yourself as a creative person, right? Are you very exceptional at communicating? Now, for example, one of the very important skills that is quite missing in the software engineering industry is communication. Most software engineers, like myself, I've been a software engineer for over 12 years. Um, most software engineers have difficulty having to be able to pass on, simple communication as to, okay, how do I communicate with customers and all of those things. You being able to take initiative, you being able to be a good or effective leader, you being innovative, you being able to communicate effectively. I mentioned communications, right? So these are very important skills that you need to leverage on. The second thing itself is the fact that for most persons, they actually care more about the certificates and the degree, having to run after every single certificate. It doesn't mean that they don't matter. However, the UK talent space and even the global market tech talent space is quite more particular about your skills in itself, the experience that you have. What have you built? Let's see, how do you portray some of these skills? How do you portray them in your interviews? So if, for example, you've not really built much product and all of those things, and you try and apply for, let's say, product management role, and you're not even able to tell them how you were able to, scale through building XYZ products. When they give you scenario-based questions, how do you answer these things? So these are things that really matter. Then the third thing itself is, what is on your portfolio? Do you even have a portfolio, for example? Have you been able to put out something that, okay, I worked on XYZ, I worked on this, I worked on that? And the truth of the matter is, there are a number of other a number of platforms that you can use to, build a public portfolio. Um, Tools like Framer, Webflow, and other no-code platforms where you don't even need to write any single line of code, right? So you need to actually ensure that you have a solid portfolio that you're putting out there. Don't forget, you're in a globally competitive market where there are also other talents out there that are trying to also showcase themselves. So you have to put your best fits forward, right? So it is very important. Second, you have to keep even the portfolio simple, right? You have to display team-focused projects, because by the time you come into an organization, you are going to be working with teams, right? So you have to ensure that, projects that you're displaying are like quite team-focused. It's not just projects that you have to build in silo and all of those things. Then even you highlighting your learnings. Then another thing I would like to ask is, who would like to probably like tell me what's wrong with this particular LinkedIn profile? This is someone's LinkedIn profile, and I'd like to know what's your reaction to this would be if you are a recruiter on professional picks. Well, yeah. I'd like to hear another reaction. It looks unserious, exactly. So the question I want to ask us itself is, what is on your profile on LinkedIn? What's your profile picture looking like? Is it probably like your wedding picture or just one random picture and all of those things? I know for most of us that probably like have had to join this call, we've had to join, we have a very professional LinkedIn profile and all of those things. However, it is very important that beyond just the profile picture, every other information that we have on our LinkedIn actually says it says something positive about us. When was the last time we updated or reviewed our LinkedIn profile? Because that is actually a selling point for you. So for example, I'll just give you a few tips. Like you need to add a background photo, for example. It's a nice to have. You don't need to overcomplicate your summary with like all of the skills in the world. Just keep it short, simple, keep it straight to the point, and let it showcase your relevant skills. Just highlight the relevant skills. So if you're a software engineer, for example, what kind of products, for example, are you more strong on building? What kind of language are you very much skilled at? You understand? So you need to keep that simple. Seek endorsements. Ensure that you actually feature most of your endorsements. Have you probably had a public speaking engagement and all of those things? Let it be there. Then also request recommendation from your colleagues, because those are things that actually help. Because if your colleagues are able to actually tell that, oh, you are this kind of person, you worked on this kind of project, and this is the unique thing that you brought on the table, it goes a long way. Yeah, I talked about certifications earlier, and not like certifications are not good. They are good. However, we need to ensure that we use them at the right way and also at the right place. So on your LinkedIn, it's not bad if you have your certification, but don't over depend on your certifications, because as much as they are good, right? By the time you're going for interview questions and all of those things, you'll be presenting your responses as to what you've actually applied, not necessarily the knowledge that you've just acquired in itself. Then also put your portfolio that you had built earlier, showcase it on your profile and all of those things. Then, well, last thing, put open to work. Ensure that you put it that you're open to work, because this also helps recruiters know who they are reaching out to and those who they are not reaching out to. So I'll just briefly talk about, especially for people that are trying to get into the world of tech and every other thing. These are important skills that you probably need to pay attention to. I won't go into the details of all of this because of time. I have a very short time, and I think I'm already hitting into time already. So the essence of this conversation or this presentation is just so that you would know that yes, there are opportunities in tech, but you are most likely not presenting yourself properly, and that is one of those things that we hope to actually address in today's session. So very shortly I'll be introducing Yunus, who would be speaking and be helping us as to more details about some of these things, because I can only share from just the very high level part, but it would just go a bit deeper into what the conversation is about and how you can really position yourself much better. So very briefly, I'll just introduce Yunus and just tell you the amazing person that Yunus himself is. I don't know if some of us have probably gone through our Summit website and you probably seen the bio of speakers, but I'll just give you a very brief summary. So Yunus is the head of digital at Eli Makoto Foundation, and he's multifaceted. He's an innovative leader and he has over 20 years of experience. He's passionate about building and crafting user-centered experiences across digital, physical, and product domains. And he's currently based here in the UK, working with the Eli Makoto Foundation, which is a charity in itself. He also mentors on ADP List, where we met, right? And it was amazing for him to actually accept our invite for him to come and speak. So, Yunus, I'll be passing on the mic to you so that you'll be able to as well speak and take charge of the next session. It's great to have you here, Yunus. You're quite muted.
If you can give me the screen share capability as well.
I've given you the right.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind introduction. It's great to be here, to be able to talk with the whole group of people from so many different places. So let me screen share first. Where's my correct screen? This one. Let me know if you can see my screen. Funnily enough, I lost my...
Yeah, I can see your screen.
But I lost my screen now. Wait a second. Where is my... wait. I need to do some cleaning before I screen share. Apparently, Zoom doesn't like multi-screens as always. Where's my portfolio? Wait. Oh dear. Anyway, I want to talk today about job market in UK while multitasking about screen sharing. And I want to talk about how we are applying our portfolio, our brand, and I want to have discussions about people. And give me a second. I need to figure this out. This is very annoying. And not a good demonstration of tech market. I want to create a setup that allows me to see the faces, but as we are not showing many, I can't stick around without that.
That'll be under the view. Then you should probably see the gallery in itself, I think.
Now you can see my screen, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, so sorry for that inconvenience. So yeah, I want to give some highlights. I will do a quick key pointers. Before that, I want to introduce myself. Like you said, I'm living on Isle of Wight, which is just this not so small, but small island south of England. But I'm originally from Izmir, Turkey. I spent almost 40 years in Turkey and moved to Spain and then to UK. And I have been in UK for almost 5 years now, leading a team of 20 people at Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which consists of designers, developers, product and automation experts. The whole organization's charity is over 200 people, and we are working with businesses to influence them adopt circular economy practices, which is a interesting topic area if you want to explore, which is an up and coming new way to approach economy so we can actually make the future better for our children. And my past includes life in large consultancies, large design practices. I spent decades building digital products, physical spaces, and leading teams, studios in multiple geographies. So it kind of gave me a good sense of what different geographies are, what different backgrounds of people come from, and how they can actually come together and build synergies and deliver the best outcomes. And I had the chance to work both as consultant and as in-house expert or contributor within large corporations and also charities like the one I'm right now. So yeah, and funnily enough, I moved to UK just before 2 months before COVID. So my experience to UK market is quite distinctive in the sense of what was out there or what's happening. I didn't really look for jobs in UK. I moved to UK because of this job, which was kind of a passion project for me to contribute to the difference. But then it allowed me to learn the market dynamics, the struggles, the realities, and I kind of will dwell on that. And before that, I want to ask the question to the group. What are your job titles? What is your current or future roles that you are applying for? It would be great to see those answers. If you can just drop a message, perfect. Yep, we have developers, we have data, UX, awesome, mobile developers, project management. Bring it on, come on, awesome, yes, exactly like that. And these are all job titles that are super relevant to the market dynamics, but also it brings the challenges. The job market in UK mainly, I will mention, is oversaturated in different ways. There are too many people, not just people based in UK, but so many people all across the world that are interested because there are too many jobs. And part of this challenge is, I think, Yomimi shared some good numbers about it. I think there is some challenges, especially post-Brexit, especially certain ways of working dictates some of the challenges in the UK market that my personal feeling is people change jobs too quickly and companies don't really try to stick with individuals as much, which creates a very crowded circulation, which is part of the challenge, especially in the tech space. There are lots of layoffs, there are lots of appetite changes. People don't enjoy what they're doing, so they're looking for different jobs. So there is a constant circulation rather than sticking what's out there, which is creating an extremely crowded job market. And this makes it even more difficult for recruitment processes, for recruitment people to identify the right candidates, for you to find the right jobs out there that is fitting. And usually people carpet bomb the job descriptions that they advertise with standard terms that doesn't really tell much. So it makes it almost impossible for them. So it's making their life difficult for them to pick the right candidates out of the crowded application process. which brings me to the niche point. You need to find your niche. How are you going to express yourself? Is it through your LinkedIn profile? Is it through your job descriptions? You need to explore some ideas. Don't just follow the guide, follow the best practices that are advertised out there. Test and trial. If you are especially experiencing lots of rejection emails, you need to get it as a feedback. These are not, it makes your skin get thicker, but also it makes you, it's a feedback for you. So not the detailed feedback, but still a feedback. So you need to use it according to that and raise the bar to go out, go above the crowd so that you can be picked off. But this is a long-term bet. It's a tricky one. You don't really get the clarity until you get a job interview. So it's a tricky one. And as I mentioned, the market maturity is a tricky one because it's a mature market, 100%. It's a large market. There is lots of employers. There are lots of employers. There are a wide range of options. But my personal belief, recruitment systems are not fit for purpose. It's very depending on traditional methods of finding the candidates through technical experts, recruitment experts, which I don't think are good enough at all. And through that, you are supposed to get interviews, and this makes life really hard. So that's why only few large companies who does this better shine as good options for job seekers. But there's a vast ocean of organizations behind it that they are not doing this well enough. So they are struggling, but also the candidates are struggling. You are not able to find the right job application options. And I'm 100% sure all of you here have a job in UK that is fitting to your talent, but the matchmaking is so difficult that the system of this process is quite tricky. So it's not on you to fix this, but you just need to be acknowledging the difficulties of this situation and try to find ways. And probably the other bits that I'll mention will fit into that space. So, like I said, you have to be patient. You need to have clear choices. Carpet bombing applications is an option, but how much of it will really going to make a difference for you? And again, will you enjoy actually if you get, I mean, desperation is a active factor, but think multi-steps ahead, like try to play chess and try to see the next moves. So be picky, because also to respect yourself, you need to be picky. But I also admire the needs and realities of context. So think about it multiple times, and everything is an experience point. Every application is making yourself grow better, adjust. If you are not questioning from one application to another how you could have done differently, how you could have done better, how you can improve, that's wrong. You shouldn't be sticking still. Every time you tinker stuff, test, you can even do A/B testing. You are the experts in this space. You know better than I do. You can actually diversify and test certain grounds. Can I get 2 steps of interviews? Can I get anything at all? So those are the elements that you need to be considering. And before moving into other details, I also want to mention, both because of Brexit and also the financial context of the UK market, everywhere in the world, not just UK, everybody is expecting the financial crisis. Everybody is kind of bracing for it. And especially UK is still struggling with the lack of talented people within UK premises. Before Brexit, it was very scarce and available. And right now they're still trying to adjust, but also we are still struggling with a right-minded, not right, but more conservative leadership, which is pushing for, I'm not UK person, so I shouldn't be talking too hard on these things, but looks like they are still trying to make job permits, sponsorship and visas harder. So these are all factors to be considering. So sponsoring is getting even more difficult now nowadays. So companies are going to shy away from bringing people out of Dubai. Like I benefited from a sponsorship. So I was lucky before COVID, even a charity considered doing a sponsor to an individual from abroad. But it's getting more difficult for companies to do that. The lists are getting shorter, the costs are getting bigger. So keep these factors in mind. So just dynamics of the content. This brings us to your portfolio. How can you actually express yourself for the best ways? And my personal choice as a recruiter who is checking portfolios for designers, for technical people, most of the time projects themselves are irrelevant. I'm saying this, I respect the project, I enjoy the project, but project is the foundation for me to learn about you. You are my interest. I'm not going to buy the project. I don't give any minute of interest to a mobile app or a platform that you built or a design that you delivered. If it is good, if it's giving me hints about you as a person, that's why I'm curious what you did in that project. What was your contribution to that project? What was the setup of the team? What was your role? What was your challenges? Even challenges and failures will teach me as a recruiter how you navigate yourself through these projects. So the interesting parts for me in a portfolio is those elements. When you express yourself, either in a CV or a LinkedIn post, obviously in a public space, it could be harder to explain those failures. That's fine, but you need to find the balance in a different version. You share those challenges. I never experienced user client-facing interviews. It was such a challenge, but I flourished, I prospered, I managed to do it. Or I never wrote with 5 different developers sitting next to me and it was a challenge, but I managed. We lived through it and now it's up and running. Learning those things are actually the milestones of growth that demonstrates a recruiter that you are progressing. Obviously, these are difficult for the initial job application processes, but this will help you on your next stages of interviews and conversations. And those are the angles that you can focus on when you talk about your projects. And definitely have a portfolio. Do it yesterday. You should have it already. Have a record of everything you did. Your personal projects, your good professional projects, and don't worry about how it looks. I am the last person to be probably talking about a portfolio because after 25 years, I still don't have a portfolio. I never presented a portfolio. I was lucky enough to go through steps and find the things that I wanted, and it kind of made me cheat about this, but I definitely see it as a failure rather than an achievement in myself. And you should keep a track. Also, after 25 years, I now say, I wish I have the record of that thing I did 20 years ago, or I did 15 years ago, either a photo or either a record or a documentation of the things you collected, because this is a stash of treasure that you will build throughout your professional life, and you just need to keep it precious. You need to keep focusing on them. And it doesn't have to be just your UX role or business analyst role or mobile development. It can be other diversification of different things that you did. A personal project, if you create a smart home for yourself, create a tech geeky thing, or achieve something else, help a construction project, still keep a record of it. You don't have to use it, but have the record. So create a filing system for yourself. You can iterate it, but don't think twice. Do it already and start recording your achievements. You will like this after when it's necessary. Not today, it will be a bit painful, but you will enjoy it when the time is right. And when it comes to sharing portfolios, sharing CVs, test and iterate, keep fresh and share. Share it with friends, share it with colleagues, share it with trusted fellows or people that you enjoyed, respected, and get feedback from them, not just from. Usually, unfortunately, job market don't give you feedback. It's unfortunate. It's unfair, to be honest, but because of the crowdedness, that's the problem. If you are respecting someone and checking their portfolio, there's always time for sharing feedback, but that doesn't exist. This level of respect never settled in the job market, but you should find opportunities to develop that kind of interactions with others and improve it. And on the portfolio side, it's not just about the portfolio. Every engagement you make, every interview, every meeting is a user testing for you. I'm talking from a user design experience person's perspective. Every meeting I attended actually is a user test. My topic is my subject, and the audience in front of me that I want their interest is my users. So every engagement I build, I engage, is actually the user testing environment that I should observe. You are not there to present and be a parrot about what you are presenting. You are actually observing your audiences. In the early days, it can be hard, trickier. When I was 20 years younger, this was totally out of my mind. But in the years, I observed and I learned that this is actually a super talent that you can develop. And it will allow you to actually navigate not just between two meetings, but even within the same meeting setup. You can course correct and adjust to get the attention of your audience. And it will allow you to engage and get the results, get the outcomes that you want. And it is a next step for your portfolio, not your portfolio, but the extra talent that you will control your audience. So take all your engagements with a pinch of salt, think of it like a third person experience. Zoom out of yourself, see yourself in front of you, presenting to that audience, and see the whole audience, one or multiple people. Try to observe and engage with them. You'll see that this is going to make a big difference for your engagements. Next, before that, I can get questions already, but I don't think there is any right now. I will move to the next one, the brand. Take care of yourself, obviously. What I mean by brand here, I'm not talking about a mega ultra brand like Nike or anything. We are not talking about brands in the sense of that. But as a professional, as an individual, not even a professional, your mother has a brand. Your teacher at school has a brand. What that is kind of the reputation that they generated, the knowledge, the engagement, how people perceive them. And you are in the journey to build your brand. Every step, every day in your life is actually steps you take in your own brand. And how you are taking care of yourself will dictate how your brand is evolving in that sense. So keep learning all those certificates, things that you enjoy, but not just professional. Diversify, add new capabilities, which will allow you to understand different aspects of it. Is it related to parenting can bring a lot to professional life in its own right. Again, record your achievements, track your progress, be mindful of how you are progressing, and make a reflection. Funny enough, I first heard the word reflection at the age of 38, I guess. Before that, I didn't have the notion of it, not being in that space, but make reflections, talk to yourself and try to improve. But you don't need to get mentorship about it. Just be questioning your life and your decisions with a positive manner, not because of depression. And then share your achievements, because when you share it, it's a sign of how your brand is evolving. If you don't share, nobody knows that brand. And once you share it, it will make it clear, is it in the right direction? Is it impressive enough? Is it not so interesting enough? What should I improve? So that will give you the evidence of next steps for yourself. These are elements that will go for maybe later, maybe with a job, with a space that you have to deliver these things, but be a team player. I think these are, especially in the early days of your career, these are critical factors to keep in check. Keeping your ego under control, listening and contributing, in a development environment, it's very different, but I'm talking with a perspective of product management or design. There are egos because you are hired to be a person to drive something. You are not necessarily part of a 10 people team. Sometimes you are the only person who is delivering something, which may create a false perception to be a lone wolf. But be conscious that you are always controlling your ego and actually be a team player. Not necessarily they are declared as teams, but the technical person or the business stakeholder or the other person, they are always going to be relations, and being part of that as a team player will help you build your brand. Because when you are a team player, people will respect you. Until you have the skills or talent to smash it out of the ballpark, you need to stick around these kind of attitudes so that you don't get ousted or chosen, or like somebody else is chosen because you are not enough of a team player. Those are going to be factors into your growth. And can-do attitude for myself, but also everyone around me that I see prospering, is a great game changer, because usually people in a team setup go to the, or if I need to choose someone to deliver something, I usually go to a person who has the can-do attitude rather than questioning everything or challenging every aspect of a need. This is a big differentiator, and having a can-do attitude will give you strides of progress in the places that you haven't considered is possible. Like it, I don't know if it makes sense when I say can-do attitude. I can open this up, but if you have any specific questions on that, I would be happy to get back. Because this also will bring you a network of people. By network, I'm not talking about the coffee meetings that you attend on a coffee shop, or a startup or a hub meeting that you are attending. I'm talking about the actual hands-on work network. When you are in a, let's say, large company like Google or something, and you are building working relations, in 10 years, many of those people that you worked in a team, in a relation, will be in so many different organizations that running companies or running teams, and you are going to be one of the people that they trust and get back and work together. These are all very solid relations that will help prosper each of them. You are a can-do person, the other person is the same, so you will actually push each other, create this synergy and contribute growth of each other. These are right mindsets to keep in mind. And after all, enjoy the ride. Like, even the worst job is still an experience. It's a boot camp. It's a learning experience. Just know when to jump ship, when to stop. If it's an abusive job or anything, definitely don't do that. But even the worst environment, most difficult working hours, most difficult team members, leaders around, will still bring you some resilience, some experience that you will use in your next steps. So use it as a given. Don't separate yourself from that kind of jobs. My most difficult one was in a bank at the very early days of my career, and it was a boot camp. It's still enjoyable, but it was so hard, so difficult, so different than anything else. But after that, it helped me build my network. It helped me build my personality as a professional, things that I want to focus, things that I prioritize. Still to this day, even technology changed tenfold since then. It still gave me the principles that I adopted in this time. And these are all the things that you will appreciate later. So make sure you enjoy the ride. It's similar to, probably people don't remember Lost anymore, but Game of Thrones, like the final episode is not the thing. It's the whole 8 seasons that you enjoyed. You are not aiming for. So focus on the journey that you are experiencing throughout your job and enjoy it as much as you can, even if it's the most difficult circumstances. This is a bit irrelevant, but I enjoy showing this every now and then. it's a motivation to keep your brand at check, because people don't really mess themselves as much. We expect circumstances to change, and we kind of react or not react it. But this is said in a context of military, not the best example, but I think it's very fitting. I heard it in a recent tech report presentation. I mean, if you don't like change, you are going to like irrelevance even less. To keep yourself relevant and up to date, you really need to embrace change. Keep your learnings fresh, learning attitude fresh, and keep adapting. It's going to help you a lot, and it will contribute to your circumstances. So I was trying to stick with the time frame. I think I achieved it. I saw some questions. Daniel, you asked, how do I gain achievements, and what can I consider as an achievement? Every project is an achievement, actually, or every year is also still an achievement. So your CV is basically your documentation of your achievements. So just respect your life experience, professional career as an achievement. But on top of it, depending on your circumstances, can you tell me your job space? I don't know if you mentioned it before. Let me see. Like we can you are a backend developer. Yeah, backend developers have the hardest life to to demonstrate achievements. That's quite tricky, but still try to get a high level framework of what you achieved from your team lead, or like what's the one explainers that you contributed, still an achievement. In your early days, you don't have to claim the whole ownership of those builds, but in time you will be more and more senior and more present in the decision-making process of those outcomes. And beyond that, try to get contributions beyond your space. Like I have developers who moved into facilitation space, who moved into user research, you don't need to do these. These are choices that you make because you are interested. So if you have any level of interest, just diversify and find those other things that you do. And personal builds and other stuff can also be an achievement. Backend developer is tricky, I agree with that. But you should be more proud on the longer, complicated setups, and probably the demonstration of up-to-date knowledge on the backend space is a critical achievement on its own right, because that's such a vicious and growing space that you have to keep up to date all the time. And is there a particular format or creating portfolio that is generally acceptable? I mean, depending on your context, think about it. Do you need a website? It's not a requirement. I don't find it 100% critical to have a website, especially a backend developer. I mean, have a one-pager as a website if you want to. And you could have a hidden page section that you share with a recruiter or someone behind the scenes if you want to. But still, a deck is sufficient enough. In some contexts, a longer version of your CV with detailed breakdown of your development achievements and stuff could be sufficient. So there's no one format. It's depending on your job and your context. And full stack development course, how can I land my first job? I mean, again, recruitment is a tricky beast. Depending on your proximity, I would recommend maybe looking for contractual jobs, staying humble. Any team will always appreciate extra hands in development projects, but depending on the context, even if it's not UK, there are talent markets, or like you won't be able to land a standalone delivery job, but you need to find the circumstances that will allow you to get a team environment and get into that team with the smallest role importance, but still a first step in the beachhead, so that you can carve yourself a more bigger space in the it's a tricky one. I mean, first step is always the hardest in that sense, so I appreciate the hardness of it. So don't lose your temper or patience. Stick with it. What else? Any other questions? How can I get mentorship in my field? Well, I mean, you can diversify because backend development, that in UK there are some founders and coders kind of societies that are out there. You can look at those environments, but I'm not sure where you are, so maybe I'm misleading. Look at networks, find someone who is like 5 years older than you, who is maybe at a higher seniority space with you, and you can just talk with those people. That could be a start of a mentorship on its own, right? But socialize, don't shy away from engagements. Composers for someone to have. Is it composers for someone? Do you mean compulsory, or I don't know what the question was?
I think it meant compulsory.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think a portfolio is a compulsory thing, but again, you will be asked about what you did. One thing I didn't mention in the portfolio part, especially for designers, I changed the presentation a bit not to be more designer focused, but as a recruiter, the least interested projects for me is school projects and projects that doesn't really do much. It's like gymnastics or an exercise that doesn't really deliver anything. They are still interesting to show your outputs, but they are not actually contributing to our investigation to recruit someone. So it's not going to be relevant for my needs as a recruiter. I don't know if this answered your question. Usually it takes 5 minutes to figure out if someone is fit. It's a bit unfair, but it usually is. Like if you are curious about the person, you then, if you are really shy, if you are really introvert, I recommend exercising within circles that you are not comfortable. Get out of your box of friends and engage with others so that you open up your interpersonal skills. I know it's hard. I was the shyest person in the meeting room when I joined the bank 20 years ago. I would be the happiest person if I don't say a word, if I ran away from the meetings. But with years of professional career, you know that that's the worst attitude you adopt. People will not recognize you, and you don't want that. You just need to make a difference in your interviews. People need to remember you, so you may want to break those kind of spaces. I had many companies decline granting me an interview since I'm not based in UK. What's the possible way I can come serve as much country? Again, recruiting from outside UK is quite a tricky beast. They only do for extraordinary talent in most cases, if they are not bulk recruiting. And in the recent job market and political context, I think I don't know, Yomi, you are probably more experienced than I am in that space for tech recruitment, but UK market right now is not very welcoming as it used to be. But they are still trying to make peace with Brexit or not. So it's not the happiest thing in the world, but yeah, it's a bit tricky. So be realistic to yourself. If UK is not an option, what are the other chances? Remote is amazing as an option. By the way, if this was happening 20 years ago, I would totally build my bases as a remotee to deliver the most impact. There are so many choices, especially in the space of development and design. Like as a product, even business analyst can contribute remotely big time. So even if you want a job on site in UK, you can still be a huge asset to any company. You just need to find the right connection. There are some recruitment organizations who allow UK-based or other country-based companies to hire from other countries. Look at those opportunities. So like systems that you put your hourly contributions into outputs, which may consider more experienced people, but still some room for that. Yomi, shall we continue getting questions, or what's your
Okay,
idea?
actually, so we have a panel session
Yeah.
after Michelle's session.
Mhm.
So I think most
Okay,
of us
let's hold some questions for that then.
Yes, yes, yes. So thank you very much, Eunice, and it really was an amazing session. I'd like us to just probably like in the chats, just probably like give him a hands of applause. That was really an insightful session, and a few things just before I welcome Michelle. I learned is basically the fact that first, it is very important for people to find, a unique niche, a niche that works best for them. Yes, portfolio is very important, but beyond just the portfolio, it's about you, right? So if you're not able to basically defend whatever portfolio itself is, if you're not able to communicate it very well, if you're not patient, a lot of things can actually go wrong, even if you build a portfolio. So again, I just want to say thank you very much, Eunice. It's really, really, really a pleasure having you here. Yeah, so I think at this point, I don't know if Michelle is ready. I'd like to welcome Michelle. And I would also just introduce Michelle, just so that we all can know who this amazing woman is. You probably have seen her info on our on our website as well. Yeah, so just a few seconds before I do the intro, let me just give you the um rights and just a few moments. So I've given you the rights, and you can take over. But just before that, so I'll just tell you a bit about Michelle. So she's into product management, and she's actually a product management lead at Agnes UK. She has been a professional for quite a number of years and has helped build multi-million-dollar brands. I'm amazed, right? And yeah, one of the things that we actually look forward to itself is enjoying the positive inspiration she shares, the solutions to problems that she prefers, and the impact that she creates. So, Michelle, it's really a pleasure having you here, and I think you have the floor.
Hi everyone. Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon now, yeah. Really happy to be here and to be speaking with everyone. Um I really want this to be an interactive session. So we're just gonna be talking because I feel like the the job market is heavy enough, applying for jobs, trying to find the right job, trying to find the right company, getting rejected a lot, all of that is heavy enough. Um so I want us to have a really interactive session, just talk through stuff. So um if you have anything to say, put it in the chat. I will actively be looking in the chat. And we can talk. Um so first things first, yes, the applying for jobs is not it's not for the faintest of hearts. A friend of mine recently got a job, and when I saw his stats on applying for jobs and everything he went through, I was very shook. I think he put in about 200 applications, got 50 interviews, no, got 20 something unique interviews, and 50 interviews in total between, you know, between all the jobs or between all the companies, from one phase to another. And then in all of this, he only got, I would say, one offer. He only got like one proper offer. And this took him from when? From November last year up until February this year. It was a couple of months. So it is not for the faintest of hearts. Um, there are lots of you as an immigrant, there are lots of things that are already stacked up against you. If you need sponsorship, if you need sponsorship, first things first, actually, if you need sponsorship, that's one of the primary things that will pose a challenge for you, because a lot of companies, aside the big techs, like the fintechs, so primarily like banks and things that have the budget to sponsor people, a lot of companies don't have that budget, or they only have the budget to sponsor for certain roles, which is something I've seen recently. Um, so one of the first things I say to people who are applying for jobs or who are looking for jobs, and I've had to speak to in the past couple of months, is take a deep breath. First things first, take a deep breath. It is not you're not sometimes you're not doing anything wrong. there are lots of things that are against you. Applying for jobs abroad and applying for jobs back in Nigeria are two different things. Or not just Nigeria, to be honest, even I would say West Africa, because I'm familiar with the West African market. So I would say applying for jobs, US, the UK, Canada, Europe, and applying for jobs in West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, um, those kind of countries, those countries is different because there's a process before you even get to the hiring manager. So you have companies who have the hiring manager, have an external hiring manager, and then have an external recruiter, and then have, the hiring team internally. So you first have to get through the door of the recruiter, the external recruiter, and then after that, then get to the hiring manager. It's roughly, give or take, an average about 5 steps. And then depending on where you are in your career, what stage you're at, you might need to do a case study, you might not need to do a case study, also depending on what field or what sector that you're in. So if you're in engineering, it's slightly different. If you're in product management, it's slightly different. If you're in design, it's slightly different. Just different in like the requirements that you're going to need or you're going to need to have. Um, I would say that the most straightforward most times is engineering, because they're literally just asking you stuff about code. So they want to see the apps you've built or the website you've worked on. And then they ask you straightforward questions around actual working. When it comes to design as well, you have a portfolio so they can see the designs you've built, and then they probably give you a case study, just to understand like your processes and stuff. When it comes to product management, it's product and project management alike. It's a bit more interesting because the questions that you're asked are a lot more technical and behavioral. Just because there isn't necessarily as a PM, projects and product, you're not necessarily the one who is actually doing the day-to-day building. You're putting the team together and ensuring that you're the glue basically that holds that team together. You're also the one who does the foresighting, and you're the one who does the strategies and things like that. And then from there, the team now knows what to build and how to build it. So with that, you're now having to structure yourself to tell that story of how you put a team together, how you hold the team together. So you find that as a PM, some of the questions that I've heard in interviews or from interviews is, how do you measure success? How do you motivate the team? How do you do all those things? Because at the end of the day, as a PM, you have technical skills that are required to be even just a general PM. With a technical PM, you're a bit more of a sometimes someone who has an engineering background. Sometimes you're someone who's non-engineering or with a non-technical background, but then you have technical understanding because as a technical PM, your main focus is on the engineering team. But as a general PM, you have growth PM, you have product marketing managers as well. Like there's a bunch of things. And so and a lot of times companies are also not really sure who they want. So I've seen situations where companies hiring for a lead PM, they're hiring for a senior PM, they're hiring for a product director. And when you interview with them, they will tell you that okay, yeah, we're open to these three. We might not fill all three positions. And when you look at the JD for all three as well, the JDs are extremely similar. And it's like these are three different levels of product management. So like what do you really want? I literally had a meeting yesterday with a bunch of seniors who are immigrants as well, but not necessarily Black. Not necessarily Africa. I had some Indians and some Latinos as well in that meeting. And it's across Canada, Canada, the US, and the UK. And everyone's having the same conversation. What's going on with the market? What do recruiters want? You fit the box, you fit the checklist that they have. And I'm just gonna have questions open so I can be sure. Yeah, you fit the quest, you fit the checklist that they have, and you start the interview process and they tell you that you're exactly what they want. But then it's like there are a bunch of people who are exactly what they want. So then they go and streamline it even more. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's the easiest of markets. It's not for the faintest of hearts as well. But I would definitely say just keep it pushing. Speak to people, particularly I like to speak to recruiters, people who are recruiting as well. I like to speak to them and I want to hear where their head is at, what they think of resumes, what do they think of, sample resumes, my resume, what would you suggest that I tweak and things like that. And then keep adjusting and working on stuff from there. Um, and I think another thing that's tricky as well, one of the things that also making the job market really saturated, I want to dial us back down to COVID. So 2020 was a unique year. I don't think we've ever had a year like 2020, at least in my lifetime. And what happened with a lot of tech companies is a lot of people were home, so a lot of people were using a lot more products. And then I think a lot of companies did planning, forecasting, and assumed that the rest of the world, right, the rest of the years going forward would be like COVID year. Um, and so they planned for that. And so one of the things they did was they hired for that. And so there was a heavy batch of hiring that happened in 2020. And I feel like companies are still recovering from that, particularly the big tech companies. So you have Amazon, you have Google, you have Meta, you have, I mean, we saw what happened with Twitter 2 years ago. We had all of that. And so they hired for that across a bunch of, departments in their company. And what's been happening in the past couple of years post-COVID is that they've been recovering from that. So another problem that's also making the market so saturated is that a lot of people are losing their jobs. So now, if a lot of people are losing their jobs, it means that there are a lot of people who are trying to get jobs. So I think I saw either this week or late last week that Google did another round of layoffs, and I was like, no. The reason I said no is because it just means it's going to be even more difficult to get a job because now there are a lot more people applying for jobs. And then now you have smaller tech companies coming up with amazing ideas and, amazing suggestions, and amazing, feats and stuff. And they want to hire. And then a lot of them also now want to hire people who have worked in big tech companies because there's conversations around scale, there's conversations around, projections. They want people who have either worked with their competitors or worked with the big tech companies because then they want that experience. They want to use that experience with them, with their building, with their strategies and things like that. And it's tough. I'm going to just go through a couple of questions. It seems like the software engineering side is getting more and more saturated. How does someone stand out even from the CV and getting called for interviews? Praise. Okay. This will be addressed in panel session. Fine. If you had never worked for a company or a team before, how do you get a job if you never had an experience, but you have great works that you've had? One of the things I suggest to people, and that's one of the things I was talking about when I say chicken and egg situation, is because people want you to have experience, but then you also need a job to get that experience. So it's like, if you give me a chance, I would be able to get this experience, and then I can now actually be who you're expecting me to be. You find when people are applying for a job, entry level stuff, and then it's like I'm entry level. I have about a year experience, but then you're expecting me to, do a bunch of stuff. It's like, what are we doing? Um, so one thing I suggest is internships. Surf through LinkedIn, there are a bunch of people who are doing internships, or who are doing like accelerators. And what you do is if you go through the accelerators, some of them have links to companies outside, right? So, or have links to hiring managers or have links to companies. And so what happens when you go through this accelerator? Some are paid, some are free. So it's something you might have to invest in. when you go through these accelerators and you learn, it could be a software boot camp, it could be a product boot camp, it could be a design boot camp. And when you go through these accelerators and you talk about your experience and you're really engaging, then the people who organize it and have links to hiring managers, when you're excellent at it, or in that field or accelerator, then there's a potential for them to link you with hiring managers, and then you get absorbed into, those kind of companies. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is work on self projects. When you work on self projects, another thing to do or to look into is work on self projects. When you're working on self projects, you're the founder, you're the product manager, you're the developer, you're the designer. You get a robust amount of skills, and then you're able to know how to apply those skills into applying for jobs. When it comes to resume building, I always say your resume is a storyboard. What you're doing with your resume is you're telling a story of yourself. Like Eunice said, who are you, right? What kind of talent are you? Not just a person, but I want to see through your resume that this person does such impactful work, and if I have them in my company, they would make such a huge impact or change for us as well. And then in doing that, your resume needs to have things like it needs to be result driven. It's not just, oh, I did this, I did this. What did you do, and what's the impact that's had? The impact they had in the company, the impact that they had externally, those kinds of things. They need to be in your resume. If you have less than 5 years experience, less than 6 years experience, you have no business having a resume longer than a page, because you want your resume is going to you don't want your resume to bore the recruiter. So I have roughly almost 7 years experience, and my resume is still one page. Because it has to be straight to the point, impact driven, storytelling. And I want you to see my resume and be like, okay, what's happening here? How do we engage? What do we talk about? What's interesting about you? How do you get a job in my tech company? Interesting question. I mean, so to be honest, it depends on what kind of field. I'm in health tech, and my space is narrowed even deeper into femtech. And so with us, when we're hiring, which we aren't at the moment, but when we're hiring, it's hiring around or conversations around experience, specifically experience building the type of things that we build, because we're building for a specific niche of people. And so we want people who are sensitive to understand what we do, how we do it, and the importance of the work that we do. So I build products for women, pregnant women, um, reproductive health, those kinds of products. And we're building products that are very specific. So we need people who are very sensitive to understand. So it's not just about having the technical skills, but it's also about having the soft skills and the behavioral skills, to understand the delicacy of the work that's being done, and why we do what we do. So it's not just understanding. I've worked with developers in the past who are just straight to the point, we're coding this, we're doing this, we're delivering this. And we had challenges working. Why? Because I need you to understand why we do what we do, um, who we're doing it for, understand why there's a heavy importance on this work, and be able to connect to it. If not, there's a culture fit problem. And a lot of companies also hire with culture fits. Even when you're going through the sometimes the onboarding questions, do I call it onboarding? Kind of onboarding questions when you're about to apply for the job. And then they'll ask you, which one of our values do you align with? Because it also is important to be a culture fit in that company as well. So yeah, I would definitely say that specifically as an immigrant, it's not the easiest of things, especially when you're in a position where you may potentially need sponsorship. One of the things I do suggest is people tend to want to apply for jobs and then want to go to like the heavy high companies. I'd say start off with companies, if you're not in the UK yet, start off with companies that are hiring remotely. And when they're hiring remotely, they don't, for those of us in Africa, those who are hiring EMEA, right? So they are open to you staying. Their only specification is with time zone. It's not necessarily with your location. Consider that. I would say if you don't have experience working in big tech companies, even in Nigeria, or another thing I would also suggest is look for the companies in your country that have international branches and see how you can work with them locally and then potentially migrate abroad. That's another option. So if you're working with a fintech company, for example, you want to look at potentially local fintech companies that are in your country and are potentially hiring. And how do you get a hold of such companies? To be honest, it's research. There's no sites I can recommend at the moment. But if I wanted to talk about fintechs, for example, the likes of Moneypoint, the likes of Paystack, the likes of Flutterwave, those are the ones I know that have international branches and are actively hiring. And I said Chipper Cash, but they're shutting down their international branches and moving back to Nigeria. But what I can even suggest is if you even work for such companies locally, it also increases your chances of getting international jobs because then they have that set structure and the products that you're building are not necessarily tailored to Nigeria. They're products that are being used globally. You also want to look at products that are being used globally. They might not necessarily be starting off in Nigeria and then having international branches. There might be Nigerian companies, Nigerian products, but are being used internationally. You also want to look at those as well because you want to be able to build products that are used at scale. So if the issue now is I'm not living in the UK, so I don't necessarily have UK experience, but then I have global experience. So now you have to tailor your experience to the type of companies you want to work at. The thing is, the thing is, job searching, job seeking is a full-time job. Like it is, by the time when you're looking for a job, you're looking for application, you're looking for, you're trying to apply for jobs and stuff. It is a full-time job. You have to dedicate like full-time, at least 4 hours a day, just balancing and doing your research. How do I do this? What company is this? What are they looking for? What's the culture fit like? Look at the team as well. If you see a company that has, and you see team pictures, and everyone on that team is white, there's no black person, you can apply, but then the chances that you might even get called back might be slim because you genuinely want to do deep research. Go to Glassdoor before you apply for a role. Go to Glassdoor and see what the feedback is like for people who have interviewed at that company. Some companies, there's even no need. There's actually when you look at the feedback on Glassdoor, there's actually no need for you to apply because you might get in step one, step two, and you will now realize why the people who are complaining on Glassdoor are complaining. It's tough. It's really tough. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm not going to say, you know what, it's not important. It's flowers and rainbows and happy-go-lucky. It's really tough, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible because there are people who are getting jobs. There are people who have applied and are applying themselves and are making it. So you can make it as well. Another thing I would suggest is sometimes you might want to come a bit lower. So if you're a senior who's applying for roles and things and you are applying for senior roles, but maybe you don't have the experience that they need. So maybe you've not worked with products at scale, or the products that you've worked on have not been necessarily been used globally, those kinds of things. There's certain things you see. If you're a senior, you might want to come in and just come in from a lower level. So coming from like a senior PM level. I hope I'm not over time. Okay. Coming from a senior PM level and then from a regular PM level, or if you're a senior developer, you want to come in from just a regular developer level and then grow from there. What else would I suggest? There are sites where you could do like a resume scan. There's Job Scan. I think it's called Job Scan. I think it's called the ATS scan thing that scans your CVs. And you want to look at that because yeah, and you want to look at that. Oh, thank you, Eunice. Yes, Microsoft, IBM. You have all of these in Nigeria. So you want to potentially look at these and, start from there, because then if you're working for a subsidiary, you kind of understand what the processes are like and things like that. There's something called the ATS scan. I think it's called the ATS scan. I'm going to do a quick check. And what that does is it basically just streamlines, yeah, it's called the ATS checker. Job Scan has one. And what it does is it streamlines it tells you if your resume is even going to be picked or not. Because now a lot of companies use this when they're hiring. So you realize you apply for a job and in 10 minutes you get an email that says, oh, unfortunately, unfortunately. Sometimes it's not a human being who's monitoring the applications, because you have companies who put out a job ad and have over 1,000 people apply. So they use a job scan, an ATS checker thing to streamline. And sometimes you might be fit for the role, but then something in your resume was not compliant, so then you don't get picked. So job scan does a good job at reviewing your resume and telling you where you have issues and things, and then you can make those tweaks and then continue applying. Yeah, I think, let me see if there are any other questions for me. Yeah, please drop your questions and then I can respond to that. I can respond to them to the best of my ability. Yes, Google has roots in Nigeria. Netflix has roots in Nigeria as well. MTN, Amazon has roots in Nigeria. Although, did they leave? I know there was Prime in Nigeria, but I think they just left. I might be wrong, but Netflix is in Nigeria, Meta is in Nigeria, Uber is in Nigeria, TikTok is in Nigeria. And I'm using Nigeria because even if you're in other parts of Africa, you could find what parts of Africa that companies have roots in, and then you could apply for those. You could apply to work in those companies. Sometimes they're open to relocation, so they can relocate you there. But then you have to look at what your plan is, what your trajectory is, and what you're looking forward to, what you're looking forward to having or building. And then, this is a step because I'm heading towards here, right? So if I take this step from here to here, then maybe I can do this here. There are also certain things you can consider applying for. The Global Talent Visa, if you're someone who's maybe like a founder or who has done significant work in tech, you could check the Global Talent Visa out and see if you qualify. If you do, you could apply for that as well. What that does is it opens you up to opportunities. You don't need to have sponsorship from a company to be able to work with them. So then it cuts off a chunk of blockers for you that you would have experienced when you were job seeking. And then you just keep, applying for jobs and stuff like that there as well. So that's another thing you could look at. Thank you, Eunice. Yeah, that's another thing you could look at, the Global Talent Visa. They have two sets of it. They have the Exceptional Talent and Exceptional Promise. Promise is under 3 years of experience in the tech field, and Talent is 5 years. And then you can get up to 5 years at a time. And then after that period, you can apply for like ILR and indefinite leave to remain. It's a pathway to naturalization, if you must. But then what it does for you is it allows you the opportunity to work and live in the UK without necessarily being tied to an employer. And you can, as long as you're working in tech, yeah, that's another opportunity that I would say is open for immigrants as well, looking to migrate to specifically the United Kingdom. Yeah, I feel like I might have, if there's anything I've missed, can anyone let me know, please? If there's anything you want to talk about as well. Someone asked, fashion designer who moved to the UK, but it feels like it's hard to even get an interview. Suggestion, I would say, so I meant on ADP list and on AB, which is where I met Yummy. I meant on ADP list, and one thing you can do on ADP list is you can speak with recruiters potentially who are in the same field. My bad. Sorry. Okay, cool. Yeah, you can mentor on ADP list, or I mentor on ADP list, and you can sign up for ADP list. And what happens on ADP list is you have a wide range of people. So you have people, I'm pretty sure you're going to have people who work in this field as well, emotion design as well. So you want to speak with people who are in your field. Sorry, you want to speak with people who are in your field, and then recruiters as well. What you want to do when you speak with them is get their get their 2 cents on your experience and how they would recommend you tell the story of what you do. So if you're in motion designing, those kinds of things, you're going to need to have a portfolio, because people need to see the work that you've done, right? So I would definitely say you want to speak with people who are senior in your field first before you speak to recruiters. Speak to people who are senior in your field. What would they be looking for in your type of position, right? What do they think um is something that is important for you to have that you don't have already? What would they be looking for someone with your years of experience, for example? Hear what they have to say, and then take a look back at yourself. And when I say this, it's an out of body experience. So take yourself out of the equation and then look at your resume and look at your portfolio and ask yourself, am I someone that I would want to hire? Would I want to hire myself? Right? And in looking at that and asking yourself, do I want to hire myself? What you then do from that is you begin to look at yourself and your storytelling in a different perspective. Because then you're not looking at it and you're asking yourself, okay, how do I do this? Where do I do this? How do I tell this story? What do I adjust here? What do I need to change? And when you do that and you make those changes, apply for jobs again and see if there's any difference. There was a period, I think earlier this year, there was a drought period. So like I think between January to mid-March. Another thing you have to also consider is the season you're applying for jobs in. So companies round up for the financial year in the first quarter of the year. And so they begin to open up. And so what they're doing is they wrap up, when they're wrapping up, they wrap up with people's contracts because then they have a new budget for the year. So that budget for the year is usually released, and they start the financial year again around April, mid-April, some people early, some people mid, some people late, for lots of companies. And so what ends up happening, so if you have any friends who work in auditing, you find that in the first half of the year, towards like February, March particularly, they're extremely busy. And the reason is because they're working with companies who are wrapping up for the year, so they need to figure out their numbers, etc., etc. And then when that's done, they open up again to start hiring in April. Reason being that they have a new budget, so then they know, okay, we need 2 PMs, we need 5 PMs, we need 6 PMs, we need 2 engineers, we need this, we need that for the year. They wrap up contracts as well because then they have a new budget. Maybe it's a lower budget, maybe it's a higher budget. And so they open up for the year as well. So you also need to be conscious of seasons when you're applying for jobs. Excuse me, because you might end up checking and realizing that the season in which you are applying for jobs companies are not necessarily hiring. You also see situations where, particularly on LinkedIn, a role was put up and it was up for like a week, and then you see it up again another time, and then it says, oh, reposted, because they probably didn't find someone for that role. So it happens. If one has a technician sponsorship, isn't it a safe bet to get employment outside the UK, like the EU, since the UK job market is tough? So the thing is, you can get employment anywhere, but if you're the thing with the UK as well, and also I think Eunice had talked about Brexit for a bit, is the experience that needs to be relevant for you is UK experience. So it could be an EU company, but if it's hiring in the UK, that's fine, because then the experience that I think one of the almost only conditions, heavy conditions for your visa or for your sponsorship is that you are working in the UK. So you are working in tech in the UK. That's the important thing, because if you think of the process of applying for the technician sponsorship and things, you are telling the story of what you are coming to do in the UK. So if you come into the UK and then you are now working for a company based in the US and they don't have a branch in the UK, you're not working for the UK, right? And so by the time you want to now apply for like indefinite leave to remain after 5 years, or if you even paid for 3 years and then you want to extend it and pay for your extension, one of the things that you need to check is your payslip. And that pay slip is basically proof that I have been working in the UK since I said I was going to come and work in the UK, and I'm working in the UK. Now, if your pay slip is not you working for a company that's based in the UK, or an American company, or a European company that has a branch in the UK, then it's a bit of a challenge, right? That's something you need to consider. Yeah. Tips to get ahead in your career path. I would definitely say check for people networking. Networking. The irony that I'm the one that's saying networking because I like to hide. Um, but I would definitely say check for people who are doing what you do, but are more senior than you. And sometimes when you go to people and you say, "Oh, I want you to mentor me," a lot of senior people are like, I don't know how to help you. I don't really know what to do. But one thing I have found that works is shadowing people. So I just want to sit by you when you work. If the person works in a co-working space, let's go to the co-working space together. Let me see what your day-to-day is like. Let me run my ideas by you. This is what I'm thinking. This is where my head is at with this thing, with this thing, with this thing. And what do you think? What do you suggest? Do you have any thoughts? And then what you want to do is you want to hear how that person thinks, and then understand what it means to think like a senior level manager, right? Or person in your field. So a senior level engineer, a senior level product manager, a senior level design manager. And what you want to do is understand how they think and how they work, so that when you are growing, it improves your thinking. Because one thing that you need to notice as you move up in your career, as you move up the ladder, you become more managerial. So there's a lot of handwork and dirty work, for lack of a better word, that you don't have to do as you move higher in your career. Reason being that you now have people who are like your direct reports who do the work. So as a lead PM, for example, or a lead designer, for example, you might still be an individual contributor. But then you're going to now be managing a team. So then you're responsible for the team's motivation. You're responsible for the team's growth. You're responsible, not necessarily out the window, but you're responsible for the team's motivation. You're responsible for the team's growth. You become a mentor to them. You are responsible for ensuring that the incoming talent is able to grow, right? Is able to be in a field that they're able to, do fantastic at. Now, you have had your time where you were the one who was doing all over the place, but yes, you're thinking like the company owner. So you're going to have to help build the future talent when you start to go up the ladder. And if you think of it, you come in as a PM, or I'm going to use a designer. You come in as a designer or a developer. You're a junior, then you're an intermediary, or intermediate developer. Then you become a senior. Then you become a lead. Then you become engineering lead, and then you get to like position of CTO. When you get to the position of CTO, nobody's expecting a CTO to be writing, like actively writing code. You're not expecting a CTO to be actively writing code. What the CTO is now doing is what is happening in the tech space now. What are our strategies? How do we do that? So as you grow up the ladder in your career, you are more strategic, you're more futuristic thinking. We're planning ahead, building this roadmap. And it's not building roadmap on the level of intermediary, it's building the roadmap for where the company is going. So it's expected that you have ownership mentality. So people start to look for ownership mentality from senior level positions because then there needs to be growth. And you need everyone in the company to understand, okay, in order to push through and figure out how things are happening, what's happening in the world of tech, how do we forecast, where do we forecast AI is going? Those who were building in the COVID years, where do we forecast that the world is going to from here? How do we do that? And then from those sessions, they now build what the future for the company looks like. So when a company says, oh, in the next 5 years, we want to do X, Y, and Z, it's not just the CEO that's thinking about that. It's the entire C-level suite and executive suite, right? So as you grow in your career, that's where you're going to. And so you want to be very conscious of, being around people who are where you want to be so you can hear from them, learn from them, and then begin to understand, okay, how do I need to begin to think? Take courses that, would shape where you are today and shape where you want to be so that you can begin to understand, this is how I need to begin to think. This is how I need to begin to speak. Even interviews, when you move up your career in the career space, some interview roles don't require you to do a case study anymore because I'm not going to be hiring a CTO and require him to come and do a case study on coding or something that I would expect from a junior mid-level developer, maybe senior, right? They're not going to expect a case study. I have a friend who's a senior developer and was applying for a role recently. They didn't ask him to do any case study. And I remember he asked the recruiter if he was going to do a case study. The person said, oh, no, not for this level. You're too high up for a case study. But then again, companies are different, right? But then it's just as you move up the ladder for different hiring positions and for different roles, expectations are different. So you just have to be prepared. Also, when you're applying for a job and you potentially get in the first door for maybe even recruiter call or the first level interview, prepare. Prepare. Learn everything you need to know about the company, everything you need to know about the role, and ensure that whatever experience, because you're not going to be asked all the questions that that need to be asked, that you need to be asked to be able to answer those, to be able to enter that role. So let me explain. I might be hiring for a senior PM position, but then I'm not going to ask you specific questions to that particular position, right? I'm going to ask you questions, whatever random questions I'm going to ask you. So you have to be quick on your feet and you have to be able to tailor each answer you give to whatever question to what the company is requiring for that role. So you have to be very, very strategic. Go through the job description, go through the ad, go through the expectations they have of you, and then ensure that whatever story you're telling, tell me about a time where had to motivate a team. Tell me about a time where you needed to move quickly. Tell me about a time where you needed to what's it called? It's building iterations, those kinds of things. You have to tell stories from your background that match what they're looking for in the job description, right? Yeah, which is why I say that applying for job applications is a full-time job, and the interview process as well is a full-time job. But then also remember that when you're interviewing, as much as they are interviewing you, you are also interviewing them. So compared with your questions as well, because sometimes the questions that you ask them, right, motivates them to actually want to have more conversations with you. You want to sometimes ask them questions that make them feel like, we haven't thought of that. Why haven't we thought of that? Sometimes you want to keep them on their feet, because to be honest, they're not doing you a favor. You're going to work with them, they're going to pay you, but you're the one doing the work. So you also have to ensure that that company is the right fit for you, right? So yeah. Yeah. I think I am done. Any questions? I guess we have a panel session, so we could ask any questions there.
All right, thank you so much. That was really, really amazing. I learned so much from Eunice, and I also learned so much from Michelle. Please, if you can hear me loud and clear, let me know that you can hear me this time around. Please drop in the comment section, use the reaction board saying, all right, great. Guys, so before we get into the panel session, what do you have to say to Michelle? What do you have to say? Say thank you to her. Did you enjoy the session? Did you get great value from it? Put it in the comment section. Let me know what you have to say to Michelle. All right, keep it coming. Daniel just clapped. Thank you, Michelle. All right, let's keep it coming. Great insights. Amazing. Thank you, Michelle. That was amazing. Good. Thank you so much, Eunice, and to Michelle. Now we are gradually getting to the point where we have the panel session. And like I said, my name is Praise. I had network issues before, but now I am back, and I'm back for good. Now we're getting to the point where we'll be having the panel session. And of course, we have Remy, who is a lead developer. We have Ademola, who is a UI UX designer. We also have Dami, who is a data analyst. We also have Ife, who is a project manager and scrum master. I'll be introducing them shortly, and then they will get to, tell you how to walk through this part. But before we get into that part, let's just do a quick exercise, right? Just like what Michelle said, I want this session to be a very interactive one. So let me ask a question. Now, today is Saturday. We are supposed to be maybe working, resting. Some people are supposed to be at a party. Now, I want you to put in the comment section, why are you here today? What's your reason for leaving whatever it is you have to do just to be here in this session? Is it for career progression? Is it to make more money? I just want to hear your insight, guys. Why are you here today? So let's go put it in the comment section. All right. So Daniel is saying, I'm here to get relevant experience in my field. I really love that. Ima is saying for career transition. Emmanuel is saying career progression. Absolutely. Zinani is saying, I need to break in through the tech industry. That's absolutely good. To learn more and network. Now, networking is very important. Networking has brought me far in this tech journey. So networking is very important. Remy is saying networking, more money. All right, Peter is saying, I'm here to gain experience, new opportunities, here for relevant guidance. I want to learn how to progress and break into tech. Absolutely. So my point now is, for whatever reason, can you all still hear me?
Loud and clear, please.
All right, thank you so much. So my point now is, for whatever reason you're here for, it is absolutely valid. Some people will say, oh, I'm getting into tech for money. That's absolutely okay. Because I feel that I know that tech is a lifestyle. And when you come into tech, there's this progression that you have into tech, and then yes, you start making more money. All right. So, and it's important for you to, invest in your personal development, because if you don't invest in that, you might not be able to make more money. So for whatever reasons you're here for, that's why I wanted us to, take that exercise just to have a better insight to why you're here, why you had to leave whatever it is you're doing just to be here. Okay, so start getting your questions ready. Because we are getting into the panel session. Let me know if I have Remy. Please let me know if you're on the call. Ademola, let me know if you're on the call. Dami, let me know if you're on the call, and if you have access to the mic already. Try, let me start with Remy. Hi, Remy, mic check, are you on the call? All right, great. Can you unmute your mic?
Can you hear me?
Is this Remy?
Yes, this is Remy.
All
Can
right.
you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. What about Ademola? Mic check, Ademola.
Yeah, I can hear you, please.
Thank you so much. Dami, mic check. Are you on the call?
Hi.
Can see Ademola. You look good.
Thank you.
Good to have you on the call. Mic check, Dami. Are you on the call with me?
Yeah, hi, Praise. I can hear you.
You look amazing. I can see you. What about Ife? Hi, Ife. Are you on the call with me? All right, so let me just start with Remy. Guys, this is the panel session. Get your questions ready regarding the relevant tech skills you're interested in. Project management, UI, UX design, software development. Get it ready because we're going to be asking you questions. So I'll be starting with Remy, who is a lead developer. And I would also say this about Remy. Remy actually left Nigeria, on a maybe tech talent global visa. He's currently in Malta and is, of course, coding. Now, Remy, I want to start with you. Just do a bit of introduction about yourself and tell us a typical day life in the life of a software engineer. What's like your day-to-day activities like?
All right, so thank you very much. My name is Remy Okewo. I'm here from Nigeria, and my coding experience has been a series of working for a previous company, where I was previously working in InterSwitch and Della until I had to leave to Malta under a digital nomad visa. So my typical coding life is most of the time, once I wake up, I have like a job and like I also do independent consultancy on the side. So my typical day is once I wake up, I get like job for my clients, like for my full-time job that tells me what to do. So what it is like they'll give me some tasks, and sometimes most of this span around like I don't know if anybody's familiar with Airtable. So I do a lot of Airtable development. I write a lot of scripts and custom extensions. Then I also build Chrome extensions for some people and do some Shopify development. So what it is that I'll look up some documentations, do the task, deploy. Sometimes I might have to configure some servers so that to have the applications running. So a lot of it is a lot of communication with clients, development, testing, deployment, and getting feedback until the next request comes in. So that's usually the day of a software developer daily.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So are we moving to Ademola? So you are a UI UX person, that's user experience and user interface, or product designer. So just tell us a bit about yourself and, of course, a day-to-day life in your life. Like, what do you do when you wake up? How do you get the job? And yeah, that's it.
Okay, it feels great to be here. Ademola Adekombi, and I'm a product designer. I'm currently based in Germany. So every day when I wake up, some days I'm excited to go to the office, and some days I really just want to be on my bed sleeping. But yeah, so as a product designer, personally, I've been part of different projects that required change in daily activities, which I engage in. But currently, I would say, based on where I work at the moment, so for each day I get up, I go to the office and I had conversation with the engineering team and also the product management. That happens most times in the morning. And then after that, I go to my product task board to see what I'm supposed to work on. And sometimes, because we basically focus on working with B2B companies, sometimes we need to get on calls with some of the contact person in companies where we are building stuff for. And after that, I go on lunch with some of my team members. Then also sometimes I might need to make some presentations about some of my ideas, which we would always deliberate on. And after that, we play some games after work, and yeah, I pick up my bag and go back home.
You play some games. I took the lunch part and the take some break. Okay. I think that sometimes people in tech just chill, right? That there are days that you really work and there are days that you just chill. All right. So thank you so much for sharing that. Hi, Dami. Please unmute your mic, introduce yourself, and tell us a typical day in the life of a data analyst.
Hi everyone. My name is Dami. I'm a data analyst. I have like over 4 years experience. And well, I'll just comment on Ademola's job. Sounds so fun. You play some games at work. That's interesting. So well, a typical day of a data analyst. I mean, some days are not, most days are not the same, but I'll just say 30 minutes of the time, I'm always in meetings and brainstorming. For someone that doesn't like meetings a lot, I find myself in a lot of meetings where it's either I have to plan it or I'm dragged along into those meetings. Sorry for the background noise. Yeah, so 30 minutes of my time is in meetings of what reports is required or what dashboard needs to be updated or what new dashboard is needed. The remaining 30 minutes is used for data preparation and ETL. So data preparation in terms of, okay, you understand what reports your stakeholders want to see. You understand what kinds of insights they're trying to get, but then you have to prepare your data. You have to know how to connect to data sources. You have to know how what formats the data are in. If you have to clean your data, in my own case, sometimes I don't clean the data so much because of the volume of the data engineers that have already prepared. But in some granular levels, there's some extra preparation that has been done. So that's like 30 minutes of the time. And 20 minutes of the time is for the actual report generation or dashboard design. I mean, you think 20 minutes is little, but if you've spent 30 minutes of your time doing meetings and understanding requirements, gathering requirements, and 30 minutes of preparation, so 20 minutes is easy for you to just put things together in a dashboard or create a report and all of that. So 10% of the time is for corrections. Maybe you go back to the stakeholder and you're like, oh yeah, I've gotten your report. How do you feel about this? And they tell you, oh, I think your report has given me new ideas and maybe you should change this or change that or adjust this or adjust that. I don't like this again. Change this to another visual, or I want to see this because of it's giving me a conversation starter. So that's like 10% of the time. And the last 10% of my time every day, every work day, is to learn. Like you might be shocked at some insights that stakeholders will give you, and then you're like, I've never thought about doing this before. Maybe they're like, oh, is there a formula to bring out this insight? And then you're like, I don't know this. Then you have to go back to your Google. Because I don't know about developers, but Google is my friend. I always just Google things away and then learn new formulas, and that's like 10% of my daily time. So that's how I spend my time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Hi, Ife. Ife is a project manager, of course, and also a Scrum Master. So Ife, hi, tell us about you and of course a typical day in the life of a project manager.
So yeah, my name is Ife. Unfortunately, I don't play games like I wish I could, but yeah, excuse me, yeah, you're chasing engineers like Remy up and down to make sure that and you're asking him how far, Remy, how far, where's my deliverable? Today is Friday.
Absolutely.
Today's end of sprint. We need to deliver. And people like Michelle I always say, how far now? What have we done? We need to deliver. We need to, so but typically no one day is the same, right? Because you're literally trying to make sure that everything is, because you're balancing a lot of things. You're balancing people, you're balancing tasks, you're balancing deliverables, you're balancing requests from senior management. You get pulled into revenue meetings because your product/project has to deliver a certain revenue by the end of the year or by the end of the quarter, right? So no one day is the same. One day you're chasing engineers or product designers to give you a certain design. the other day you are trying to get stakeholders feedback on something they've asked you for. But typically your days, first thing in the morning, find out where you are. Because I know people, like a lot of engineers they prefer to work overnight. So obviously in the morning you get some feedback to say, okay, this is where we are. You do your daily stand-ups. So I currently manage 3 teams. So different daily stand-ups to get different updates. Sits across different time zones as well. So you have to find some balance between there as well. Doing your daily stand-ups, trying to find out what's happening, trying to find out if there are any blockers that you need to resolve, find out if DevOps is stressing your life, or the data team hasn't given you the necessary data points for your app and all of that stuff. So, but typically, I mean, it's an interesting gig. I've been doing it for close to 7 to 8 years. 5 of that 6 of that in the fintech space, 2 of that outside fintech.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. I was still waiting for you to, keep it going, but it's okay. It's fine. Okay. So let me go back to Ademola. Now, I read about you where you said you started this product design thing. You took interest in design at the age of 15. And I think that's really interesting and amazing to know, because I'm trying to imagine what I was doing at 15. Let's not even go there. Let's not go there. So walk us through, for people looking to kickstart their career in the tech space as a product designer or UI UX design, how can one start a career in this part?
Okay, I think I can just kind of give a flashback to how I got into design. And at 15, I was done with secondary school. So there was this cap where you were supposed to to write JAMB and also get into school. That was the period I got to know about design. My daddy just picked me one Saturday and took me to a computer school. He never really understood what was really going on in the school. He just wanted me to learn how to use the computer. So that was how I stumbled on design. And since then, I've been part of different trainings to upskill. Fortunately for me, I met one of the persons who actually which actually shaped my career path at the US consulate. And this was the person who actually gave me the platform to pursue my career in design, and it gave me the opportunity to learn design on the job. So one of the projects I worked on was actually a live product that was developed by Andela. So I was fortunate to be part of those guys who really didn't have to go through boot camps or go through structured learning to be able to get started in design. And so if anyone is probably thinking of venturing into design, I would say there are basically 2 parts to look at it. One is to probably go through the normal structure training, which is being offered by different schools, which traditional school is one of them, and just like be able to have a solid foundation of what it takes to have the knowledge of product design. And there are also self-starters who basically just stumble on different materials to get started. They are these 2 parts could also lead to the same results depending on what environment the person found himself. I was also lucky to be part of an environment where I could explore different things and I could have access to different opportunities. Yeah, that is it for me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. So I will just move to Remy. Remy, now, how important is it? How can one build relevant portfolio as a software developer?
Very good question, because this is where I think a lot of people get it wrong. So one of the important ways to build portfolio as a software developer is to try out technologies. And when I mean try out technologies, don't do things like Notepad application or something. And I'll give you an example. I remember the time I was on, because I usually have multiple streams of income. So I remember the time I was on Upwork because I wanted to get extra income, and I entered Chrome extension. Now, what people usually do is they'll build simple applications. So, but what I did, my first extension was to build a scripter that scripts from Amazon pages to Shopify CSV, so that once you scrape all the products, it saves it to a Shopify CSV, then import it. You need to build portfolios that have like real life impact or that show technicality. So let's say, for instance, you're entering a framework like Spring Boot. You need to build like an API, deploy it on DigitalOcean, or maybe like a Spring Boot application that communicates with Shopify. So once a potential employer says that, they can see the depth, the complexity, and the breadth of experience that you bring to a project. If you do a to-do app or notepad, it tells them that you're a bootcamp type of developer. So, yeah.
All right, thank you so much for that. Remy, no, not Remy. If this is for you, and I know why I'm asking you this. Now, there's this whole thing around tech. When people hear tech, they feel, oh, tech is very, very hard. It is not for me. I don't know how to go about it. Now, how can someone go about not being afraid to get into tech, and how are they able to position themselves to fit in? So I just want you to talk from the aspect of tech is not hard, but this is what you are to do to get started in tech.
Okay, so first things first. Yes, tech is not hard, or it's hard. Whichever you try to, you're willing to take. But at the same time, it's not for the faint-hearted, right? Because it's a lot of work. People who do development will tell you that, you have to, there are a lot of things that you're trying to do. You're trying to make sure that your code doesn't break. You're trying to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing works at the end of the day, because revenue is at stake, right? So you always have to want to continue to build yourself as you go along, right? You want to learn more, you want to get better at what it is that you're doing. So yes, as much as tech is not hard, you also have to put your back into it. You have to be ready to put in the work. Wanting to get into it, there are a lot of options these days, right? For people like myself, I don't want to use the word lucky, because I have a computer science background and also a project management background as well. So it was kind of easy for me to just, sleep and transition into. For people who do not have that background, right? There are a lot of options. One option is what Transition School is doing. There are a lot of self-taught or boot camp, like what Remy has mentioned. But it's not just what you learn, right? It's what you do with what you've learned at the end of the day. It's not just you going to school or you going to class. It's like, going to the 4 walls of the university and not doing anything after you're done with it, and you're just sitting there and saying, look, I've done the work, I've gotten my BSc or my PGD, I'm just going to sit down at home and then wait for people to come and get me. That doesn't work. You have to be able to, show your projects, reach out to people. Michelle talked about networking. You have to be ready to do that as well. You have to be able to do some shadowing as well for people who have gone ahead of you to, be able to put you through in whatever it is that you are, whatever area of tech, be UI, UX, / product design / development / project manager, data analysis, data science. You have to be ready to put in the work. And like I said, learning the skill is one thing, putting that skill to use is another thing. Yes, you can do projects, but you're also be ready to start from the bottom. Nobody's going to hire you because you finished a boot camp in 6 weeks. Nobody's going to want to make you a senior designer or a senior developer. It doesn't work that way. You have to be ready to start from, permit me to use the bottom, start from the bottom before you get to the top.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. You need to be, that's one thing I said to people also. For me, I would still say that tech is not hard, but maybe a bit hard. I think what's really hard is being consistent. Like sometimes it gets really overwhelming. Like you just said to yourself, oh, I don't think I want to do this. But the more you put in the work, it's just like what we do at Transition School. We help you, help you gain practical work experience. But I tell people, you need to be ready to put in the work. What the amount of effort you put is the amount of effort that you get out of it, the result rather that you get out of it. So you need to be ready to put in the work. Now that takes me to my next question, and that would be for Dami. Now, when you talked about your writing reports, checking your dashboard and all of that, now a lot of people would be on the call wondering, before I get to this stage, do I really need to have a degree in tech or a degree in engineering or anything to get started as a data analyst?
Okay, Prince, thank you very much. Well, I would say in my team, I have like one manager, which is the business intelligence manager, and then I have two colleagues that are on the same level with me. So my manager studied, I think he said he studied something related to history, and I'm the only one that is in like have an IT or mathematics background. And my other two colleagues, one studied biochemistry and the other one studied something economics. So it shows you that you don't even need an IT background to be in data analysis or in tech sometimes. It just shows that you have to have a passion for what you want to go into and find the right tools, find the right learnings. So basically, I came into the UK for my master's degree, and I mean, from a Nigerian point of view, once you have a master's, you believe that, oh, I have a master's, I'm supposed to be earning this amount. People are supposed to respect me because I have a master's. But here in the UK, when you go to interviews and they're like, oh yeah, what did you study? Yeah, I studied this. They'll be like, okay, that's fine. And then you tell them, oh, yeah, I have a master's in this. They'll be like, oh yeah, that's fine. So what's your experience? What do you know? So you don't necessarily need that background, but you need all the knowledge you can gather for you to excel in data analysis. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You need all the experience that you can gather for you to excel as a data analyst. That's absolutely correct. Now I'll be going to Ademola. There's this all confusion around graphics design and product design. So would you like take a moment to just explain the difference between a graphic design or being a graphic designer and a product designer?
Okay, I think I will be able to explain this better since I have background in both fields. Okay, I think I would explain this using four different metrics. I think the first one will be the focus. Basically for graphic design, the focus basically is to communicate information in such a way that is visually appealing and it's easy for people to understand whatever information you're trying to pass across. And this could be in form of magazine, in form of social media, poster designs, in form of like anything, any print materials. But for product design, the focus is basically to design products or to design experience that are very functional. And most of the times what you are designing is basically digital. That is for the focus part. For the skill, as a graphic designer, you need to be strong in your understanding of design theory, the use of typography, some design principles. While as a product designer, you need all of these skills from graphic design, but as a step further, you need to be skilled in the areas of having to do user research, having to do user testing, and also having to have a good understanding of information architecture. That is related to skill. And also in terms of tools that you use, a graphic designer will basically use tools like Photoshop, Canva, CorelDRAW, Adobe Illustrator. While for a product designer, use an entirely different set of tools, Figma, you have Sketch, there's InVision, there are also some other tools for prototyping, ProtoPie, and some other tools for user testing and also user research. But generally, difference between a graphic designer and a product designer is that a graphic designer basically focus about creating visual assets that are used for communication, while a product designer work on digital products that tends towards addressing user needs.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. I understand it perfectly, and I want to assume that people on the call also understand it perfectly. So we're gradually coming to the end of this panel session, right? So I will be going back to Ife. Now, Ife, at Transition, we do Agile project management and also Scrum Master. Now, I'm going to ask you two questions at the same time. I would want you to, talk a bit about project manager, the difference between a project manager and a Scrum Master, and talk about, is it important to get a certification before applying for a job? Or because some people say, oh, I need a certification to get a role as a project manager. I just want you to talk about that space entirely. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, so I mean, a project manager can function as a project manager and a Scrum Master, right? So as a Scrum Master, you're typically more or less like the bind that that combines or that holds the development team or the Agile team in place. So your product manager is bringing some items, and then your product team is trying to say, or the development team is trying to say, look, we can't do this now. So it's your job to be able to find that balance of what's doable and not what's not doable as regards to that. But so Scrum basically is a framework, or it's a mindset, or it's a methodology that helps you to deliver things in increments, right? Which is more or less, pardon me to use the word, it's more or less a subset of project management, right? So your traditional waterfall project management, where you have to test, you have to, first of all, design, do your initiation planning, all of that you can do in Agile project management, right? But Scrum says, or Agile says, look, the most important thing is to deliver value to the customer, and you want to deliver that as fast as possible. So whether in 2 weeks, whether in a 1 week sprint or 2 week sprint or 3 week sprint or 4 week sprint, depending on what your organization is accustomed to. Most people these days tend to do between 2 to 3 week sprint to deliver items. Do you need a certification? Most of the time, so most of the job profiles or the job JDs I've read online, yes, you see a lot of them say, look, have at least the basics, right? Especially for Scrum Master, which is either your PSM1 and then your CSM role. In this part of the world, in Nigeria, yes, you would need that. I mean, to be able to get your foot in the door. Because you have the certification doesn't mean you know the job, right? There are two different things. You need to be able to show that apart from having the certification, not just the nuances, not just, saying this and using the buzzwords in Agile to I'm shipping this, I'm delivering this. You need to be able to know how these things work. So you need to be able to, it's because the Scrum Master role is a leadership role, is a facilitator role, is a coaching role, right? So you need to be able to not just have the certification, you need to be able to do the work as well. So do you need a certification? Depending on what part of the world is, most often than not, yes. But to balance that, it's not just enough having a certification, you also need to be able to do the work.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. So it's not enough to have the certification. You need to be able to do the work. Because I also tell people that sometimes when you get a job, your certification is good, but you're the one that will do the job. So it's not a certificate that will do the job. So you need enough experience to, do the job. Now I'll be going back to Remy. Now, Remy, in terms of problem solving, how important is it for candidates to, demonstrate problem solving abilities when working on hands-on projects?
Oh, yeah. Problem solving is very, very important because, especially in tech, a lot of times you're going to be thrown into a lot of unknowns, especially if you're working with enterprise projects. So I think one of the good parts about problem solving, the way to get good into problem solving is having a lot of deductive skills, ability to research, break down problems, because not everything is code. Sometimes just having a high level understanding of certain things might give you ideas on how you can go about it. And by the time you also read and research, you might find that information that help you with breaking down the problem. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Now, Ife, this one is for you. Now, for people getting started as a project manager, what are the basic skills that you think they would need to get started as a project manager?
So your communication skills have to be on point, right? Because you need to be able to communicate across different cadres, from higher stakeholders to lower stakeholders. Your people management skills have to be on point. You need to be able to manage people. Research shows that the chunk of the work of a project manager is people management and communication, right? Then you have to be able to resolve conflicts, right? Your designer is fighting with your developer because he has designed something that he should not have designed, and it will take him an extra 1 week for him to implement, or so you would always have those kind of issues. So communication, people management, conflict resolution. So communication, both written and verbal, right? So sometimes you have to send emails. Documentation skills are very important as well. You need to be able to document what's happening at the moment. But top of my list is usually communication, and then people management after.
All right, thank you so much for that.